Welcome back to Thrive in the Word. We're going to continue our study of 1 Peter, the 5th chapter, verse number 2 today. Peter writes, and he's writing to elders, and the first thing that he says to elders in verse number 2 is you need to shepherd the flock that's among you. And we've talked about how shepherding is to give protection. Well, the next thing that he says is that we are to exercise oversight not under compulsion, but voluntarily. Now, we're going to talk today about exercising oversight. Now, what does it mean to exercise oversight? Well, first of all, we need to understand what oversight is. Now, for some people, tragically, oversight means to dominate. It means to force people to do what you want them to do. And that is not at all what oversight means. Oversight here, the Greek word actually means to stand over or to watch over. It would be a word that would be used as a person who is guarding over a city. You see, we as elders, and let me just say this to you, you who are not in places of leadership in the body of Christ, you need to expect and receive the oversight of those elders. That's their calling, that's their job, to watch over you, not to dominate you, not to suppress you, not to tell you what you're supposed to be doing, but to allow you to follow the plan and purpose of God and to equip you to do that. That's what an elder does. But elders need to stand over the flock. I remember many years ago, I was teaching at a camp in the country of Peru. And we were way off the beaten trail at this campground. And one afternoon, I saw a young boy, and he had a flock of sheep up on a hillside. So I thought, I don't have to minister for a while. I'm just going to go out, and I am going to watch the shepherd. I am going to learn something today about being a shepherd. And so I kind of found an advantage point where I could watch him. And you know what? He sat there, and he had a dog with him, and he just sat there, and he just constantly was scanning the flock, just looking from one side to the other. Sometimes he would stop, and he would look a little closer, and then he'd look from one side to the other. And you know what? That's exactly what Peter is writing about. Elders, you need to know your flock. You need to look at them. You need to watch over them. You need to know when one of them's hurting, when one of them's limping, when one of them's not eating or not drinking. You need to know your flock. You see, it's very important that elders are not separated from the flock, that they're not separated as a place of hierarchy, a place of being better than, but that they're involved with the people, that they're walking among the people. What would you think with that shepherd if he would have brought those sheep to that pasture and then he'd say, okay, I'm checking out, and he'd pull out his cell phone and he'd start playing games, and he never paid any attention to the flock? You would have think, it would be very easy for a wolf to slip in. It would be very easy for one of these sheep to die because of exposure, to die of a disease. And you see, that's what pastors and elders need to do. That's what leadership in the body of Christ is there for. They are there to give oversight. And Peter says exercising or doing oversight, not just having it, but doing it. Exercising oversight, not out of compulsion, but voluntarily. One of the things that's very important in your Christian life is why you do what you do. Why do you do what you do? Do you do it because you're of a compulsion? Because that's what's expected of you? I noticed in my own life many years ago that I was doing the ministry before I was ever ordained or ever recognized as being in ministry. In fact, when I sat on the ordination board that ordained me. One of the men commented, he says, Leon, you're already doing the ministry. And you've not been officially recognized, but you are already involved in ministering and watching over people and praying with people and taking care of people. And that's what I look for as I've been involved in bringing people into ministry positions. I look for how are they doing, or what are they doing without a title? You see, if it takes a title, if it takes a occupation to make you an elder, then you're not an elder. You're an elder because God has placed it in your heart to take care of people, to watch over the flock of God. Now, it's very important that you are recognized. And I really support the idea of being ordained, not just some little party that they throw for you, but a real ordination service. But it's important that you realize that you're doing it you're shepherding the people of God, not because of a title, not because of compulsion, but you're doing it voluntarily. And then he says, according to the will of God. In other words, you're doing it because this is what God has designed you to be. This is his will for your life. You see, elders need to do what they're doing, not because someone said to them, well, you know what? I think you need to be a leader. No, you do it because it's the will of God. Those of you who are in churches, you need to ask yourself this question. Is your pastor and the leadership of your church, are they doing it because it's the will of God? And then very quickly, it says, not for sordid gain. In other words, it didn't say not for gain. It says not for sordid gain. That means gain that's not earned. And then he goes on and he says, but with eagerness. Why are you doing what you're doing, elders? And people of God, you need to ask yourself, why is your leadership doing what it's doing? Is it doing it because of the will of God? Are they doing it for gain? Or are they doing it eagerly with a heart that's completely voluntary? If you were to take away their salary, what would they do? Would they continue to do the will of God? I hope so. Now, I hope that this has blessed you today. And our prayer for you is that God will bless you abundantly.